Dear John, what does it truly mean to love another? There was a time in my life when I thought I knew the answer. It meant that I'd care for Savannah more deeply than I'd care for... Okay, no, we're not going to do the Dear John thing. That was already a joke that we had made, like, 3 videos ago. Something like that. But either way, today we are talking once again about Toronto Maple Leafs' former captain. I was about to say captain, gotta get used to saying former, John Tavares. Because with recent sentiment about this guy popping up on social media, popping up on regular media, popping up on the tweets, popping up on the Reddits, and popping up in the Facebook comments, everybody's talking about Johnny T and what his future is going to look like. I'm recording this audio on the morning of Saturday, August 17th. If it's uploaded and John Tavares signs an extension, then okay, I look like the biggest fool on earth, but right now, Johnny T is without a job in 2025, 2026, and beyond. This guy needs a deal. So, whether or not him stepping down from the captaincy realm in Toronto is going to lighten or liken the odds of him actually getting that contract extension, that all remains to be seen. We won't really know until he actually does sign this thing. But for now, what I wanted to do was respond to an idea talked about by Brian Hayes on TSN Overdrive. Pretty sure most of y'all are familiar with what Overdrive is. This is a segment where they had Eddie Olczyk on the show, and he actually did predict the Toronto Maple Leafs to finish in the Final Four this year. So, Eastern Conference Finals territory for Toronto. Who knows if that's possible or not with this core of guys. But within this video segment, there is a comment made by Brian Hayes in regards to John Tavares, and simply put, the meat and potatoes is written out right here. Even putting the value aside, this is what I find a bit confusing, Hayes said. There's this big debate over, alright, what should the number be? Before you get into that, the real question is, should he even be here at all? Like, that's again, the core 4. This is where there's a divide in the fan base, and there always will be. Now, the core 4, such a intrinsic identity of what the Toronto Maple Leafs are now. And I think Hayes is onto something here when it comes to that public discourse and the sentiments surrounding whether or not the core 4 really is as good of a core 4 as they need to be, whether or not they gel as well as they should, whether or not they step up to the plate when they need to, whether or not they fulfill their responsibilities. And I think for the majority of Leafs fans, they could all agree and say that for the past few years that this core 4 has been in place, aside from a few goal records and point production metrics, you can say that this core 4 has not accomplished what they have needed to accomplish. They only broke the first-round barrier once. And their second-round appearance against the Florida Panthers was embarrassing as hell last year. Now, with all the other games that they had played, all the other series, first-run exits that have been held onto by this core 4, you could say that now was the time for necessary change. How heading into the 2024 offseason, things were going to be different for Toronto. They were going to make a splash. Everybody was talking about a Marner trade. Everybody was talking about Nylander needing to come back. And now we're in a position where, sure, Nylander got the contract. Sure, John Tavares gave up the C, and now it's Auston Matthews' captaincy on the squad. But Mitch Marner is still here. Matthews, of course, Nylander, they're still here too. Johnny T is still here as well, and he's in a much more difficult spot than anybody could have anticipated for him at this point. I mean, say what you want about the talent, say what you want about what Tavares is capable of, but for a guy to relinquish the captaincy like this, it doesn't make for the easiest conversation in the world. Like, obviously, he can say all he wants about how this is the right move for the team and how he helped the Maple Leafs make this decision and his kids are wearing Matthews' jerseys and everything. But at the end of the day, it is kind of weird. Straight up. And for Brian Hayes to go out there and call out John Tavares in a very particular way, hey, is this even the guy who should be here at all? I mean, it is an intriguing talking point, and it's one where, if you think about the cap savings, you think about what Tavares is and what he would cost, I could totally see an argument as to why it would make sense for Johnny T to leave Toronto, whether it is via a trade or via free agency next year, although, of course, acknowledging that free agency next year would be the worst-case scenario for the Maple Leafs. Imagine losing out on John Tavares and his profile for nothing on the free agent market. But then again, you also have to combat this with the perspective of the Leafs' point of view. Do you want to extend John Tavares? Okay, if you do, then great, but can you guarantee that a guy who's already been slowing down, whose production has already been decreasing, and whose foot speed is literally slowing down, can you guarantee that you're going to be able to sign this guy to a contract that works, that fits, and that will be seen as okay heading into the next few years? I get it, the cap is supposed to go up. John Tavares making $6.5, $7 million into his later years won't be as big of a deal when the cap is at $105 million a year. Like, that's kind of inevitable, right? But you still have to acknowledge this from trying to maximize every dollar that you have, especially when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. If John Tavares starts becoming really slow, and he's really not able to carry a team, and he's not able to be the top dog, you could say that's why he relinquished the captaincy. You can say that that's why they made the choice to do this now. If John Tavares goes down this spiral and he's making $6.5, $7 million a year, then the Toronto Maple Leafs are crap out of luck. And so how do you combat that idea? You wait. You don't sign the guy right away. You reevaluate after the season. You give Tavares a 2024-2025 year without the captaincy to show that he doesn't need that captaincy to be effective, nor to score points. If you reevaluate at the end of the season and he's good, great. If he wants to come back, even better. You could sign the guy and everybody's happy. But if John Tavares does end up kind of declining even more throughout the season, then maybe it opens the door for the Maple Leafs to make a trade with him at the deadline, or they let him walk, which would be absolute worst case scenario. You don't want to do that. If you think that you're not going to bring him back, just trade him at the deadline, right? That'd be the rational thing to do, right? But the Maple Leafs are probably going to be good in 2024-2025 in terms of their regular season record, right? So would you trade away a guy like John Tavares while knowing that you're probably going to make the playoffs and you're probably going to have some sort of an impact and attempt at a run? Do you trade Johnny T, or do you let him stay on your team knowing that he'll probably expire as a free agent if he's just not good enough to bring back? That's sort of where the dilemma brings itself up here, and it's why Brian Hayes inspiring this entire conversation on the TSN Overdrive show was so interesting to me. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, not what should happen, not what could happen, but your prediction. If you had to place a bet, you don't even have to be a gambler. I'm not a gambler, but I still make hypothetical statements like this. If you were to bet John Tavares, is he a Maple Leaf in 2025, 2026, yay or nay? What are your thoughts on that? Does he suit up for the blue and white by the time next season rolls around? By this time next year, is he signed on to Toronto or some other team? Is he a free agent still looming around in the afterlife waiting for a team to resuscitate him and bring him back to the National Hockey League? Of course, he'll be good enough to get that contract, but still, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below with this John Tavares idea and whether or not it really is in the Leafs' best interest to let Tavares go. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.